Welcome to the Refugee AmeriCorps Initiative Training on Member Reporting Outcomes. By the end of this e-module, you will be able to explain the reporting structure of the Refugee AmeriCorps Initiative and how to use the mandatory reporting tools to accurately track the outcomes and outputs of intensive community orientation. In following along on your member onboarding checklist, at the conclusion of this e-module, you will be able to initial annex to the following topic: tracking interventions. This first part of the first part of the member outcomes tracking is going to discuss a little bit about the Refugee AmeriCorps Initiative reporting structure. While intensive community orientation, or ICO, may be implemented differently by each Refugee AmeriCorps member and site, CWS HQ must be able to share the impact of your work and the overall impact of our program. But how do we do that? As you know, Refugee AmeriCorps has two funders, the Office of Refugee Resettlement and the Corporation for National and Community Service, or CNCS. CNCS is the entity that is providing the most guidance in our program design and reporting structure. We learned previously that the mission of CNCS is to improve lives, strengthen community, and foster civic engagement through service and volunteering. CNCS partners with thousands of organizations every year, so how can a federal entity working with so many different organizations measure the impact of their programs? It is done through a universal reporting structure. CNCS has a reporting structure that allows them to communicate the impact of their AmeriCorps programming to their key stakeholders and to tell the story and impact of national service. The universal reporting structure CNCS has created consists of 16 agency-wide outcome performance measures and output performance measures, or interventions. A performance measure is a value or characteristic that measures progress towards goals and also is used to improve progress, reduce risk, or improve cost effectiveness. CWS HQ and the Refugee AmeriCorps Initiative is required to create a reporting structure based on CNCS's 16 agency-wide performance measures. Let's explore this a little further. CWS HQ has decided to report on 4 performance measures, one of which is mandatory by CNCS. As you know, the Refugee AmeriCorps program supports a resettlement environment that promotes refugee integration through enhanced mutual understanding between refugees and their new U.S. communities through intensive community orientation. ICO will offer an introduction to newly arrived refugees in the areas of housing, health, and/or employment. CWS HQ has decided to report on performance measures tracking each of our intensive community orientation focus areas of housing, health, and employment. In the area of housing, we are going to be tracking the number of economically disadvantaged individuals receiving housing maintenance training and other skill development services. In the area of employment, we're going to be tracking the number of economically disadvantaged individuals receiving job training and/or skill development services. And in the area of health, we're going to be tracking the number of economically disadvantaged individuals participating in health education programs. And then in the area of, and the last performance measure we have to track is a mandatory measure that CNCS assigns to all AmeriCorps programs, and that involves volunteer engagement. So we're also going to be tracking the number of ongoing volunteers generated by our Refugee AmeriCorps members. These performance measures are what CNCS calls output performance measures. An output performance measure measures the amount of services provided or the completion of activities. For example, the number of refugees who receive intensive community orientation in the areas of housing, health, or employment. While it is important to track the reach of our programs and the number of individuals served, output performance measures only tell us a limited information about the impact of our program. It does not measure the program's effectiveness and only touches the surface of programmatic impact. Because of this, CNCS also assigns what we call outcome performance measures. An outcome performance measure allows programs to measure the results of programmatic activities and assess the individual and collective results of the programs offered. So let's take a look at the Refugee AmeriCorps Initiative outcome performance measures. In the area of housing, participants will have improved understanding of housing maintenance and domestic life skills. In the area of employment, participants will have improved employment readiness, and in the area of health, participants will have improved understanding of health topics. Our volunteer engagement piece does not have an outcome performance measure. We only measure the number of volunteers the Refugee AmeriCorps member recruits. With these outcome performance measures, CWS is able to show a more accurate impact of our program. For example, being able to say that 100 refugees received ICO on housing rights and responsibilities, and 80% of those who participated demonstrated an increased understanding of their housing rights and responsibilities, is a stronger statement than just saying 100 refugees received housing ICO. By combining outcome and output performance measures, CWS HQ is able to provide a more accurate impact and picture of our program and allows us to evaluate its impact. If refugees are not reporting an increased understanding after participating in ICO, CWS HQ would need to work to address why that is happening. Additionally, the Refugee AmeriCorps Initiative is also tracking the impact that we are having in our communities through community ICO. So members will also be reporting on the number of community partners trained in working with refugees in the areas of housing, health, and employment, as well as the output performance measure, which is community partners have improved knowledge of working with refugees in the areas of housing, health, and employment. Now that we've reviewed the performance measures that we are tracking, let's take a big picture look at our targets for these performance measures. As you know, the mission of the Refugee AmeriCorps Initiative is to support a resettlement environment that promotes refugee integration by enhancing mutual understanding between refugees and their new U.S. community through intensive community orientation, or ICO. 11 AmeriCorps members will carry out this mission. The mission or the goals of the Refugee AmeriCorps program are to improve refugees' understanding of housing maintenance rights and responsibilities, improve refugee understanding of health topics, improve refugee employment readiness through job coaching and financial literacy training, and improve the local community's capacity to meet refugees' unique needs. Additionally, we hope to leverage community volunteers to support intensive community orientation. Our output goals for this program are that 1,600 refugees will receive an additional hour of ICO training in the areas of housing, health, and/or employment, that we will build 130 new community partnerships, and that 100 community individual partners will be trained on working with the needs of refugees, and that we will recruit 100 community volunteers. Our output performance measure targets are that 80% of refugees will demonstrate improved knowledge and skills to navigate their community housing, health, and/or employment systems. Furthermore, 90% of the community partners will report an improved understanding of refugees' unique needs. As you can see, all of our outputs have a designated outcome, except for the number of volunteers recruited. These are our reporting targets program-wide, and while they are ambitious, we are hopeful that our cohort will be able to reach these goals. Reporting for the Refugee AmeriCorps Initiative is extremely important because it allows us to measure the impact of our program on the local and national level and communicate that impact with our key stakeholders and funders. It allows us to tell our national service story, and finally, it allows us to identify areas of strength and improvement within our program design. In the next phase of this training, we're going to discuss how you go about tracking these outputs and outcomes using the outcome tracking tools that CWS HQ has created.